You know, I see why men are staying single because look around. We have women out here bragging about not cooking, not cleaning, not taking care of their home, not being soft, and not being supportive. And then expecting a man to show up as a provider, leader, planner, protector, and lover, while giving him absolutely nothing in return. And yes, I will be the one to say it. A home needs a woman who actually enjoys being a woman. A woman who takes pride in making her home feel warm and peaceful. A woman who loves her man in the same way that she wants to be loved. That is not oppression, that is care. Men are tired of being treated like a walking wallet. Tired of disrespect. Tired of begging for affection and a little peace. So, they are choosing to stay single, not because they hate women, but because they are looking for a woman that values her role just as much as his. And honestly, I don't blame them, because relationships only work when both people show up and give.
The main problem is parents aren't raising girls to be wives. Men are staying single because so many women want a husband but don't want the work that comes with a real relationship. Marriage used to mean partnership, not convenience.
Why successful men stay single? It's often the same mechanism that makes men savage in the workplace that also makes them extremely intelligent when it comes to women. For example, successful men know how to sniff out desperation and entitlement. Most women want their lifestyle, not them, so they become experts at sniffing that shit. They don't settle.
We've all seen that TikTok of the women crying because her student loan debt has reached $90,000 with a 17% interest rate. Let's talk about why this is about more than just debt. This isn't just about money, it's about choices. We told an entire generation of young women, don't get married yet, don't have kids, focus on your career first. So what's happened is women have traded their 20s for careers and degrees, thinking that it was empowerment. And now what's happened is women are drowning in debt, in rent, and anxiety, saying that they can't even think about starting a family because they can't afford it. And here's the irony. The homemaker that they laughed at from the 1950s, they had a paid-off house by 30, kids by 25, and way more stability than today's independent boss babe. But hey, at least you got your degree in social justice. Totally worth $90,000 with a 17% interest rate, right? Feminism sold freedom, and what you actually got was debt and delayed families. Oh, and depression. Everybody has depression now.
Don't come looking for a traditional man now that the debt collectors are knocking and the biological clock is ticking. You wanted the corporate ladder, so keep climbing it. It's funny how the narrative shifts from I don't need a man to everything is too expensive once that 17% interest hits. Men are finally focusing on themselves and winning while the bill for that fake empowerment just keeps growing.
How tall are you?
How much do you weigh?
How much money you got?
How many bodies do you got?
What's your credit score?
Do you have any student loan debt?
Do you pay all the bills?
Do you cook and clean?
How big is it?
How wide is it?
Check!
It's just sad at this point. We went from building together to this cold, transactional interrogation. She's checking his credit and his measurements like he's a piece of livestock, then wonders why men treat her like an option instead of a priority. Feminism told them they could have it all on their terms, but all it really did was teach them how to price themselves out of a happy home and a real partner.
Stay single, fellas, because once you realize that relationship is always about her and her feelings and what you can provide, and she's not, doing anything for you, it's just not worth it. You're just wasting your time. She doesn't love you for you. She loves you for what you can provide for her. Always remember that.
It's wild how we got here, but you can't blame a man for looking at the landscape and choosing himself. We're seeing the fallout of a culture that prioritized her happiness at the total expense of his purpose and respect. When love becomes a performance of how much you can tolerate and how much you can buy, it's not a relationship. It's a job you never applied for. It's just a shame that being a provider became a trap instead of a mutual partnership.
You want to know why most good men remain single, myself included? It's because all of us have had times in our life where we're doing perfectly fine on our own. We're financially set. We're living life on our own. We don't need anybody. But they happen to come into our life, make us feel like maybe this is the one time that she's going to make me feel special. Say things like, you're a catch. You're my dream man. You're so this. You're so that. I can't believe I found you. I can't believe I'm so lucky to have you in my life. Only to do what? To push him out of your life and act like strangers. The same thing you were before you met. So why even bother me? Why even bother that man? Why? Good men, like myself, it's not that we can't get a woman. It's because every time we try, we're shown exactly why we're better off alone.
The disappointment comes from seeing how much potential is wasted on these games. A man builds himself up, gets his mind and his money right, and opens his heart just to get treated like a seasonal subscription. This is why feminism backfired. It taught women to devalue the very stability they claim to be looking for. It's hard to watch brothers lose their spark because they were treated like an interim prize.
I'm 35. I'm thinking about starting a family. Everyone in my friend group is either dealing with struggles to get pregnant, losing babies that they wanted to, or finding a partner and they want to have kids, but they haven't found someone, or a number of them just have chosen it's not the right path for them, and that we demonize and shame people on the most personal, private decisions.
Well, Alicia, in the examples you just gave, you presented most of those issues as if they're out of your control, but they're not. The risk of miscarriage rises with age. Fertility drops significantly in the late 20s. The eggs go bye-bye, okay? So, of course your friends struggle to get pregnant. Of course they lose babies that they wanted when they choose to have children after 30. And naturally, finding a man becomes harder since men consider the factors I just mentioned, and so they look for younger women to have children with. Now, all of these are results of prioritizing your career over having kids at a younger age. And it's not demonizing women to say that. It's just so if you end up with 3 cats, you can reflect on why you ended up with 3 cats.
It's hilarious how empowerment always ends with a conversation about 3 cats and struggling to find a partner. They really believe the propaganda that men would just be waiting at the finish line after they spent their best years ignoring us. Now the eggs are gone and the market is shifted, and they want to act like it's a mystery why the top-tier men aren't signing up. Nature doesn't care about your career goals or your friend group's feelings.
So men today aren't single because they can't get into relationships. A lot of men are consciously choosing not to be in one. And the reasons aren't what you think. For most of history, relationships were economic survival, right? Men provided, women depended, marriage created stability. But in countries like Australia and the US, that structure has now changed. So women can earn, women own property, women build independent lives, which means men are no longer automatically needed in the traditional provider role. So relationships aren't about survival anymore. They're about emotional value. And when something becomes optional instead of necessary, people start evaluating it differently. So if a man's life is peaceful, financially stable, socially full, he's not entering into a relationship because he has to. He's asking instead, does this improve my life?
He's breaking down the cold math of 2026. When the survival need is gone, all that's left is the want. And right now, the product in the dating market doesn't match the price tag. Men are looking at their quiet apartments and their growing bank accounts and realizing that peace is a luxury they won't trade for a headache. It's not about being lonely, it's about being smart with your most valuable asset, your peace of mind.
You want to know why men are staying single? Because for the first time in a long time, men are not settling anymore. Men are going to go and find a woman that they know they can bring home to their mother, and she would be proud. They're going to start finding a woman that's going to love them unconditionally. They're going to start finding a woman that has her shit together, her finances together, so he's not consistently having to pay for everything. They're going to try and find a woman that is going to be able to create a safe zone in the house, and they're going to go and find a woman that is worth settling for instead of them having to bend over backwards to impress her and to change themselves to fit her standards. And when any man comes out and says that, he is called everything under the sun. But the reality of it is men setting boundaries is something women need to start getting used to.
Why would any man with his head on straight settle for a headache? If she isn't bringing more peace than the silence I have in my house right now, it's a hard pass. We're winning in 2026 because we stopped asking for permission to have requirements and started treating our time like the asset it is. If the character isn't there and the respect isn't automatic, stay single and keep your equity.
Women hate men with standards. And I know you don't want to hear this, but it's crazy that a woman can say, oh, I want a man that's 6 feet with 6 inches and a 6-pack with 6 figures. But the second you say, I don't want a woman with a little gut, they get butt hurt. But the second you say, I don't want a woman that every day she's smoking vape, drinking Don Julio, eating cookout, and actually has a healthy body, they get butt hurt. The second you say, I don't want an insecure woman, I want a woman that's confident in her natural skin, that they get butt hurt. So when it's you and you 5'10" and you're not 6 feet, oh, those preferences. But the second you say, oh, I want a woman that's 180 or less, that's misogyny. Don't feel bad for having them preferences, because at the end of the day, when it come to you and it come to her, she gonna make you meet them.
It's the double standard for me. They want to shop for a man like they're customizing a character in a video game, but the moment you ask for basic health or accountability, they pull the hate card. It's a control tactic designed to keep you from having any agency in who you choose to build with. In 2026, we're seeing through the shaming language and realizing that a man's standards are just as valid as hers.
If a man should provide, protect, and lead, what should a woman do? Because I hear this list every single day. Provide, protect, lead. And I agree with it. A man should absolutely do those things. But every time I ask the other question, the room goes quiet. It's like it's offensive to even bring it up. We've created a culture where a man's role has a job description, but a woman's role is just be yourself. That's not how relationships work. If one person has expectations and the other one has options, that's not a relationship. That's an audition where only one person is truly performing. And I'm not saying a woman should serve like a servant. That's not what this is. I'm saying if you expect a man to lead, you got to be willing to follow. If you expect him to provide, you got to be willing to build an environment worth providing for. If you expect him to protect, you got to be willing to not put him in positions where he has to protect you from yourself. In a relationship, both sides has terms. And somewhere along the way, we started holding men accountable to their side of the deal while telling women their side is optional. That's not equality. That's entitlement with the filter on. A good man does not want a woman who does nothing. He wants a woman who matches his effort in her own lane. He leads, she nurtures. He provides, she manages. He protects, she respects. That's not old-fashioned. That's functional.
He hit it right on the head. This is an audition, not a relationship, and the pay is trash. Why would any man in his right mind sign up to lead someone who refuses to follow or provide for someone who thinks her presence is the prize? The reason we're winning in 2026 is because we stopped accepting just being yourself as a valid contribution to a household. If you're not matching the energy in your own lane, you're just a passenger, and brothers are tired of driving for free. If we're summing up 2026, it all comes down to reality finally catching up to the manipulation. For a decade, the culture sold this idea that empowerment meant stripping away accountability. They told an entire generation to treat men like utilities, replace mutual respect with a checklist of demands, and mock the traditional home. They pushed the propaganda that they didn't need us, and if we didn't bend to every whim, we were the problem. Well, we finally listened. Men looked at the lack of peace, the constant shaming, and the sheer entitlement, and we just quietly opted out. Now the dating market is crashing, the loneliness is real, and the same ideology that promised them freedom just handed them a bill they can't pay. Single men aren't winning out of spite. We're winning because we finally started valuing our own peace over a rigged game. It's not about the hate card they keep trying to pull whenever they get called out. It's about basic boundaries and self-respect. We stopped auditioning for roles that offered nothing but headaches and zero return on our investment. If you want to keep hearing the raw truth they refuse to talk about, you already know where to be. This is the silent majority. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and stay tapped in.